Alright, y'all, listen up, because what I'm about to tell you is one of the most shocking stories to come out of Chicago in 2025. We're talking about THF Bayzoo, and trust me when I say this man was an absolute legend in the streets. This wasn't just some random person, this was an OG, a real one from the war in Chirac, and he had the kind of respect in that city that most people could only dream about. When I tell you his murder shook everybody to their core, I mean everybody. This man survived beef with some of the most dangerous people you could think of. He beat cases that should have buried him, and word on the street is he even caught shots because of other people's drama that had nothing to do with him. But today, we're breaking down this entire timeline from start to finish, so buckle up because this ride is about to get real bumpy, real fast. So let's jump straight into what happened on that tragic day. October 25th, 2025. That's the date that changed everything. Bayzoo had just walked out of a car parts shop, and he wasn't alone. He had two other people with him. Now here's where things get absolutely insane. The shooters, they didn't just stumble upon him by accident. Oh no. These people tracked his exact location, they knew exactly where he was gonna be, and they launched their attack with precision. The moment those bullets started flying, Zoo hit the ground right there in the street, and before anyone could even process what was happening, the shooters made sure their job was complete. They wanted confirmation, and they got it. All three people caught bullets that day, but Bayzoo was the only one who didn't make it out alive. The streets went silent that day, and let me tell you, that silence was loud. Now immediately after this went down, the rumors started spreading like wildfire through the city. People were saying Zoo was on life support, that maybe, just maybe, he had a chance to pull through and recover. For about 24 hours, there was this tiny sliver of hope hanging in the air, but then reality came crashing down like a ton of bricks. The official confirmation came through that Bayzoo had been declared dead. The doctors sat down with his family and gave them the news that nobody ever wants to hear. They told them straight up that he was never going to wake up, that there was no coming back from this. And his family, they had to make that impossible decision that no family should ever have to make. They removed him from life support, and just like that, one of Chicago's realist was gone forever.
You know, the family decided to take THF Bayzoo off life support, man. Bayzoo is gone, man.
The reaction from the city was something else entirely. I'm talking about an outpouring of love and respect that crossed all boundaries and rivalries. O-Block showed love, 600 showed love, 300 TTE, and so many other sets put their differences aside to pay their respects to a real one. Even 21 Savage stepped up and offered to pay for the entire funeral, which just shows you the kind of impact Bayzoo had beyond just his immediate circle. But of course, because this is Chicago, and because the streets never stop, his opposition took to social media and started with the disrespect. They were clowning, they were talking crazy, and they were doing the absolute most while people were still grieving. That's just how messy this whole situation was about to get. And speaking of messy, let me tell you about what happened next, because this is where things went from tragic to absolutely chaotic. There was this guy named Fonzo, and he decided it was a good idea to drop a diss track about Zoo. That alone would have been disrespectful enough, but what happened just a few hours later was something nobody saw coming. Fonzo's girlfriend, who went by GRE or Ari, was brutally taken out. Just hours after that diss dropped, she was gone. Now the rumors immediately started flying that Ari had something to do with dropping Zoo's location, that maybe she set him up. But here's the thing, and this is important. Ari allegedly had nothing to do with any of this beef whatsoever. The reality of the situation is that her being targeted was allegedly a direct result of Fonzo running his mouth and dissing Zoo when he should have kept quiet. Ari's brother tried to clear things up on Facebook, and what he said was heartbreaking. He wrote that his sister was never the intended target in the first place. The shooters pulled up and just sprayed the entire car, but unfortunately, more bullets ended up hitting Ari's side. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught up in something that had nothing to do with her. Now here's where it gets even more complicated. Fonzo was allegedly connected to 051, and if you know anything about Chicago, you know that 051 and THF are serious enemies. We're talking about one of the most intense rivalries in the city. And right before this incident went down, Fonzo was apparently going back and forth with THF G-Baby, having arguments and stirring up tension that should have never been stirred. About a week after Ari was taken out, the police finally got a break in the case. They found the exact same car that was used in the hit, and they arrested 3 suspects in connection with her murder. Now the interesting thing is, their identities were never made public, and to this day, we still don't know exactly who they were. But the arrest happened, and at least there was some movement on getting justice for Ari, even though she never should have been involved in any of this to begin with. Now let's talk about some other connections Ari had, because her story goes deeper than just being Fonzo's girlfriend. She had a child with someone from 757BA, and BA himself was a whole different story. Back in 2017, BA was actively involved in the streets, and allegedly Initially, he shot someone from 600 named McAdoo. At a party, McAdoo survived that shooting, but one of BA's close friends ended up losing their life. Fast forward to 2024, and BA finally got arrested for that case, years after it happened. So, Ari's world was already connected to the streets in ways that most people didn't even realize. If you ever listen to GRE's music, she wasn't shy about referencing the street life in her lyrics. She had bars talking about how someone ran and fell, about how bullets hurt, about having people ready to move from east to west. She was speaking about that life, even though she allegedly wasn't directly involved in the beef that eventually cost her everything. Now let's get back to Zoo for a minute, because here's something important to understand. At the time of his passing, Bayzoo wasn't actively involved in ongoing beef. He had stepped back from a lot of the drama. But make no mistake, in his past, this man put in serious pressure on his opposition. He was known, he was feared, and he was respected for a reason. Let me take you way back to understand how Bayzoo became the legend he was. When this man was just 13 years old, he caught an armed robbery case. 13, he ended up doing 5 years in juvenile detention, and when he came out, he didn't just fade into the background. He became a major figure in the THF and 051 War, one of the most intense conflicts in Chicago history. And speaking of that war, the THF versus 051 beef is genuinely one of the deadliest rivalries the city has ever seen. The reason it got so intense is because these territories are so close to each other. We're talking about neighborhoods right on top of each other, which meant constant sliding, constant tension, constant danger. Back in 2009, Zoe allegedly caught a body that he later referenced in music. There's a track where he talks about beating a case and how the trenches started calling him Rocky because of it. That's the level we're talking about with this man's reputation. The origins of this whole THF versus 051 war go back to a conflict between two people, Zico from 051 and Aki from THF. Their argument was the spark that ignited years and years of back and forth violence. In 2011, 051 took out someone named Quint from THF, and just a few months later, they also got Tony from THF. This war was moving fast and hitting hard from both sides. Then in 2013, something major happened. Big A, who was a female rapper from 051, was taken out, and the blame for that landed directly on Zoo. Now the details on this are limited, but Big A's brother allegedly gave a statement to the police, saying that Zoo had bragged about being involved. Whether that's true or not, that's what was being said, and it added another layer to this already complicated beef. In 2015, Zoo's stepson Raheem, who was also from THF, was murdered by the opposition. And here's the context that makes this even more painful. Raheem had allegedly almost taken out 051 Melly before this happened. So while Zoo was locked up fighting a case, his enemies caught Raheem and took him out. Can you imagine being behind bars and getting that news? That your stepson, someone you love, was targeted because of the life you lived? That kind of loss changes a person forever. When Zoo finally got out of prison after Raheem's passing, he went right back to applying pressure on his ops. The loss of his stepson affected him deeply, and he made sure the streets felt his presence again. In 2019, Zoo got caught up in a case out in Atlanta that involved some major names. We're talking about Lil Durk and King Von. The three of them allegedly robbed and shot someone. But here's the crazy part. The case eventually got dropped. Zoo even went on Instagram Live with the victim afterward and called him out for cooperating with police. That's the level of boldness we're talking about with Bayzoo. Now let's talk about Zoo's relationship with Lil Durk, because this is important context. As Durk became a global superstar, Zoo started to calm down on the reckless behavior. They were close, and Durk's success meant something for the whole crew. But then Durk caught that serious legal case. That whole situation involving allegations that we can't get too deep into. After that, word on the street was that Zoo was struggling financially. He was allegedly broke, and that's supposedly why he stayed in Chicago instead of leaving the city. If he had the resources to go, maybe things would have turned out differently. But he stayed, and we all know how that ended. Things got even more complicated when a new conflict started brewing. Lil Durk started moving with someone named Lil Zay Osama from 6300. Now initially, THF and 6300 were cool with each other. Everything was peaceful, but then some THF members allegedly stole watches from Zay, and he called them out publicly on Instagram. Just like that, a new tension was created where there didn't need to be one. In February 2024, someone from THF named TP was shot and killed, and this happened right in front of children. The rumors immediately started pointing toward members from BVC, which is Bashville, as being involved. And to add fuel to the fire, BVC members posted pictures with Zay's watches, basically confirming the street's suspicions about who was involved and what this was all about. The alleged getback came when someone named Man from BVC VVC was taken out. Now there were rumors that THF was responsible for this, but other sources said it was actually DOD who did it. Lil Zay even came out and said that THF was clout chasing by trying to claim credit for something they didn't do. So even in revenge, there was confusion and conflicting stories about who actually did what. Then there's the situation with DMG Lil Deuce. According to rumors, THF also took him out, and G-Baby even dropped a diss track about it. After Zoo passed away, DMG posted what looked like score signs, basically claiming they got their revenge. Every action just kept leading to another reaction, and the cycle never seemed to stop. Now here's where we get into some really dark territory with the theories and rumors. There's talk on the streets that Zoo's own people, someone close to him, might have put money on his head. The theory goes that certain people wanted to remove potential problems, and there was allegedly old paperwork from 2009 that suggested Zoo had cooperated with authorities. Now whether that's true or not, that rumor existed.
Show me my name on the paperwork. Show me who I got arrested, gang. If y'all can't do that, stop going off all these fake ass niggas that want to get me out the way, man. Niggas want me out the way because I'm the realest in Iraq, for real.
Let's address those snitching allegations head on, because they're important to the story. There was paperwork that allegedly showed Zoo giving information to the ATF about THF's structure. But here's the thing, his enemies didn't even believe it. Billionaire Black, who was an op, even dropped a whole diss track basically saying he didn't think Zoo was a snitch. If your enemies don't believe the paperwork, that should tell you something. There's also this federal informant theory floating around. People are saying that there are informants active in Dirk's case, and they're trying to connect Zoo's passing to that situation. But let me be clear, there is absolutely zero proof of any of this. It's all speculation and street rumors, with nothing concrete to back it up. What we do know is that in the time before his passing, Zoo was posting on social media, flexing cash, and living his life. If he wanted to leave Chicago, he had the means to do it. He could have packed up and started fresh somewhere else. But he chose to stay in the city, in the environment that raised him, and unfortunately, he was attacked in broad daylight and didn't make it. As for Ari, there are rumors that she was the first get-back body after Zoo's passing. But the truth is, this war had just started heating up again, and nobody knows what the future holds. The streets are unpredictable, and one thing leads to another in a never-ending cycle that's claimed too many lives already. That's the full story of THF Bayzoo. From his early days as a teenager catching cases to becoming an OG with major respect, to his tragic end that shocked Chicago and beyond. Rest in peace to everyone who lost their lives in these situations. Because at the end of the day, behind every name and every story, there's a family that's hurting and a community that's left to pick up the pieces.